Hey photographers, this is the Fujifilm X-H2. It's one of the most requested cameras ever. Over the last few years, many of you have told me that you are waiting for this camera over others. And as the owner of an X-H1, I know why. I love the size, the physical controls, everything Fujifilm brings to image quality, like their approach to film simulations. So, what we were both wondering is, does the X-H2 deliver on the promise of our expectations? Well, yes and no. First, of course, Fujifilm slipped in a fast one, literally, the X-H2S in the spring, before launching the X-H2 a few weeks ago, S for speedy. The 2S has a 26 megapixel sensor, and the X-H2's backside illuminated APS-C X-Trans sensor captures a 40 megapixel image, or video up to 8K resolution. Otherwise, the H2 and the H2S are nearly identical. Certainly from the outside, you can't tell the difference except for the S on the front and the back. The X-H2 has the same functional design as the X-H1. Well, maybe the H2 is a little sleeker. The H2 and 2S share the same processor, but in addition to increased resolution, the sensor's design is different. The 2S has a stacked processor, making it faster. The H2 has lower base ISO, 125 compared to 160. Fujifilm has loaned me a production unit with the new 56mm f1.2 lens. Interesting pairing. Fujifilm did not pay me. Tell me what to say or review the script or video before posting. Now, from here, my on-camera segments are recorded using the X-H2. First, 4K 30-frame, 10-bit ProRes 422. That's actually one step down from the highest quality, which is ProRes HQ. And on a 128 gig CF Express card, about 23 minutes. In this video, I'll demonstrate the operation and discuss the features. I will post another video with performance samples, image quality, focus speed, burst buffer, video demos, stabilization, all that stuff. Let's start with a few pictures. You won't be surprised by the results. The high-resolution images provide lots of detail, the ability to crop quite dramatically and still retain an image with enough quality for most online uses. The film sims, whether you're using color or black and white, provide pleasing results. The X-H1's shutter release was almost too soft, and this is firmer, but still on the soft side. The mechanical shutter sound is quiet and pleasant. The H2 is about the same size and weight as the H1, same great front grip and back thumb rest. The controls, not so much. If you like a focus selection switch on the front, that's gone. There's no shutter speed or ISO dial, and there's no drive mode selection collar or meter setting collar either. Holistically, with the added custom mode settings, that's not a bad thing. I'll post a getting started settings video to demonstrate that. There's still a direction pad and an improved joystick. There's a locking PASM mode dial with 7 custom positions. A video record button has been added, unnecessary in my view. And the screen is now fully articulated, although I know you won't all appreciate that. And there's a new, longer-lasting battery, rated for over 500 SEPA shots, more with some power saver modes. That's appreciated. Still 2 card slots, 1 SD card type and 1 CF Express Type B. Those cards are pricier, but enable improved burst performance and higher video recording speeds. V90 type SD cards provide up to 720 megabits per second for H.265 video recording, but for the higher res rates required by ProRes video, you'll need CF Express. On the left side, 4 ports with individual covers, including a full-sized HDMI connector and the headphone jack that was only available with the battery grip on the X-H1. The remote port has moved to the right side. Strap ears are much improved. The topside status panel remains. It's more useful than most, as it provides battery and card status even when the camera's off. The OLED viewfinder's resolution is up to 5.7 m-dots, refreshing at 120 frames. The diopter range exceeds my prescription. The 8cm 3x2 aspect LCD ups to 1.6 m-dots. Both rotate for portrait mode shooting. There's a simple horizontal level, but also a full tilt and roll display. Turn the camera on, and if you've used any Fujifilm camera in the last 5 years or so, nearly everything about the X-H2's menu seems friendly and familiar. You will find a few interesting things, like an electronic shutter speed of 1/180,000 and 7 stops of stabilization. For video, ProRes recording, raw output to HDMI, both Adamus and Blackmagic, as well as 160 megapixel pixel shift mode. No new film sims. Image size includes 5 aspects for 3 sizes, 40, 20, and 10 megapixels at 3x2 aspect. Quality is JPEG normal, fine and raw with combinations, or use the new 10-bit high-efficiency format, offering more color depth and dynamic range, as well as better compression, along with 3 raw variants. An extensive Save Data setting menu selects the preferred card for stills and video, as well as more options for sequential or backup recording across the 2 cards. Why isn't format in this section? Here's how the exposure controls work. Select the exposure mode using the left side dial, program, shutter, and aperture priority or manual. In program, the front dial would change the shutter duration for program shift adjustments. The back dial sets exposure compensation. In shutter priority, the front dial sets the shutter duration. With the mechanical shutter, it sets from 15 minutes to 1/8,000, electronic 1/180,000. In aperture priority, use the lens's aperture ring to set the aperture. If the lens doesn't have an aperture ring, the front dial sets it. In manual, front dial for shutter, lens ring for aperture, and in manual, the exposure comp display changes to a meter. Press the ISO key and turn the back dial. There are 3 auto ISO settings, each with a default, maximum, and minimum shutter duration. To preview the depth of field, assign that feature to a key. I use the front key, F2. Depth of field preview is on screen 7. There's an icon top left. The meter mode, the top key on the D-pad, is the default shortcut. It can be selected only when face eye and subject detect is off. The 4 options don't include highlight. Meh. 2 dynamic range options. The first has auto and 3 options. 200 is available from ISO 250. 400 is available from 500. I prefer the D-range priority settings, again ISO 250 and up for weak, 500 for strong. Even more contrast control is available with Tone Curve, where both highlights and shadows can be adjusted, with a useful curve reference display, which is handy because increasing shadow settings actually lowers them. The drive options include 5 HDR settings. For the next on-camera scenes, I've changed from ProRes to H.265 All Intra 720 megabits per second, still 4K 30, using the 4K HQ setting, about 22 minutes on a 128 gigabyte card. The X-H2's focus settings will be familiar to Fujifilm photographers, except there's no switch on the front. It's been replaced by a key that opens an on-screen menu. The paradigm here is that the focus mode is part of the custom settings. We'll get to that. Simplest focus is touch. Shot is tap and snap. AF focuses the tapped subject. Area sets the focus point. Or move the joystick. The current focus point turns green and can be moved around the screen, or use the front dial to carousel through the available size options. The point moves on a grid of 117 points. The menu can up this to 425. and you can see focus covers nearly the entire scene. With the 56mm lens, focus is neither confident or fast, and the focus motor is a little noisy. The EXIF 16-52 f2.8 is quieter, faster, and more confident. More detail and continuous in the performance video. Manual punches into an expanded view when focus check is on. And there are 3 more manual focus assist options. Although it's hidden in screen settings, don't overlook the dual display focus assist, found by pressing the display key in manual focus mode. By default, the small screen is the expanded view, but they can be switched in the menu. In video mode, there are 2 manual focus options, peaking and the new focus meter. It shows which way to turn and then changes to green when you're in focus. Nice. Face and eye detect are available, or subject detection, which disables face for 6 mutually exclusive options. Face eye is activated with a shortcut key on top. If faces are too sharp and skin too detailed, the quality menu has a smooth skin option, and there are both sharpness settings and an interactive clarity screen. New here is the digital tele, but as it also crops to medium at 1.4 and small at 2 times, I won't be tempted to use it. Shortcut key is on the right side of the D-pad. For color rendition, start with white balance, shortcut key on top. Usual suspects, auto with white and ambience priority options, 3 custom slots. Although the setting is independent for stills and video mode, the custom slots are shared. K values can be set from 2500 to 10,000 in 10-unit increments, and of course, white balance shift. Color profiles are set as film simulations, 10 color and 9 mono selections. For mono, there's a color tint selector. There is a color saturation control, as well as intensity settings called color chrome and color chrome blue. Filters have their own dial position and are selected from shooting settings, a short list of fairly standard options. Many of these can be accessed from the Q menu. The key has thankfully been moved from the thumb rest, separate stills and video options, and the extensive customization menu allows for 4 to 16 items. Which gets us to drive modes, accessed from the top left key. But let's go back to the shutter options. First, mechanical, up to 1/8000, electronic, up to 1/180,000. Then electronic front and several combo modes. Burst, 10 and 15 frames with slight reductions when electronic is used. Switch to electronic for 10, 13, and 20 frame modes with a 1.29 crop, 24 megapixel resolution. Low speed burst at 3, 5, and 7 frames. ISO and white balance brackets are on their own. Then exposure, film sim, dynamic range, and focus bracket, selected here but controlled by menu settings. The focus bracket has a handy auto mode. Now, while many are dropping the in-camera panorama, it's here on the X-H2. And then multi-exposure, 4 modes to combine up to 9 exposures in a single image. And finally, pixel shift multi, available only with the electronic shutter, and a maximum ISO of 1600. Now, if your scene is completely static and you're using a tripod, this mode takes 20 images to create a composite. The only quality option is raw, lossless, compressed. The composite is not created in camera, but using Fujifilm's free desktop app or other image editing software. There are more drive options in the shooting menu. Sports Finder, taking medium-sized images but providing a larger view of the scene. Pre-shot, which saves multiple images from just prior to a full press of the shutter. Both are finicky, requiring specific shutter modes. There's a limited self-timer mode and an interval timer with unlimited exposures. Image stabilization is off while shooting or continuous. Fujifilm says 7 stops. Custom settings, as I discuss in my H2S video, are the main reason that I'm prepared to accept the PASM dial here, as in general, I much prefer the direct access to exposure settings offered on the X-H1. Start on image quality screen 4, where the settings are assigned to either stills or video. In video mode, it's on screen 3. To store your current settings, use Edit Save on screen 3. Then you can check and edit the settings. There's a screen of base controls and then 4 menu screens. For stills, 10 screens from the quality, focus, and shooting menus. For video, 9 screens from video, quality, focus, audio, and timecode. There's one setting that's either useful or aggravating: auto update. When enabled, any change you make when a setting is active is saved. Now, while useful, I'd really appreciate a firmware update to make this an individual option for each custom setting. Worth noting that this setting applies only to the stills mode here, so stills and video can be independent. Custom settings can be backed up and stored from a PC with Fujifilm's free XRAW app. That way, you can create the 7 custom settings for multiple shooting scenarios. Lots of flexibility, except that you need a computer to upload and download. Video and stills operate nearly completely independently, with context-sensitive menus for each. When you switch from one mode to the other, everything changes. For video, start with the media rec settings. You can record to card 1, 2, sequential or backup, and HDMI. Then, using the H.264 codec, intra, or long op. Data rate here is 360, all 420 color subsampling. Using H.265, intra and long op, both at 420 and 422, data rate 720. 3 ProRes variants, all 422, no data rate selection. Now, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, some indications and limitations, but note that with ProRes, a proxy file can be recorded. That's the full suite of codecs and data rates, which are available for 4K video. The only recording limits are card space and power. As the camera can be externally powered from USB-C, that's also a minor issue. As for overheating, unlikely based on my experience so far, but there is an auto power off setting in the menu. Just set it to high. Back at the movie mode setting, a higher quality 4K oversampled from 8K as well as 6.2K, 6240 by 3510 pixels, and 8K 7680 by 4320. That's just short of the full width of the sensor. 8K to 30 frames, 4K to 60, HD to 240 frames. I've now changed from recording 4K HQ to 4K standard. The difference between the 4K and 4K HQ is line sampling. Both sample 7728 horizontally, slightly more than double the 3840 required by 4K. 4K samples from 2045 vertical lines, 4K HQ does 4091. That is slightly less than double the spec, which is 2160. Those additional sample lines add some definition and dynamic range, but result in slightly more rolling shutter. Going back, DCI, the 17:9 cinema aspect, is available in 4K. Both aspects are available in standard 1080 HD. Now, incidentally, this is not the same 6.2K video as H2S, which is ungated 3:2. Here you have the more useful 16:9. There are some crops. 4K and HD at 60 frames is 1.14, HD 120 and 240 is 1.23, no crops in other frame rates and sizes. Not all of the image quality settings are available for video. For example, soft skin and clarity are excluded. A full-sized HDMI output port with and without menu and data overlay is available when recording internally. There's a RAW option if you have an Adamus or Blackmagic recorder that supports it. I don't. There are also settings for F-Log with a lower minimum ISO of 500 and F-Log 2, ISO 1000, and hybrid log gamma. You can clearly be impressed that you get all of these capabilities in a consumer-priced camera. It's truly amazing, but it is overkill for me. I don't know how or when I'll be able to actually view 8K recordings, and while I appreciate the additional flexibility, it does come at an enormous cost in storage space and processing needs. My fairly recent high-end iMac can't keep up. Subject detection is now available in video, and a new manual focus assist, a focus meter. Fujifilm claims some stabilization improvements from the new processor. There's less jerkiness when starting a pan or tilt. Also, they mention a stirring correction to correct blurring with wide-angle lenses and stabilization boost improvements. Stay tuned for the performance video post. Because it is oversampled, digital zoom is available for 4K HQ. It can be set for up to 2 times, taking the 56mm lens to 112, I think. There's an on-screen control in addition to the D-pad. Unlike the stills equivalent, this seems actually useful. I'm going to ProRes LT for the rest of the video. Now, in the box, you'll find a carrying strap, USB-C cable, and plug adapter, as well as an HDMI cable protecting clamp. The downloadable PDF menu is woefully short on technical detail, particularly for advanced topics like F-Log, RAW, and external recording. And the X-H2 has some interesting optional accessories: a battery grip for 2 batteries, a file transmitter grip, and a cooling fan that mounts inside the LCD door. As well, Tascam makes a hot shoe XLR audio adapter that supports 4-channel audio, works with both the X-H2 or the X-H2S. Do you need the cooling fan? Well, according to Fujifilm's documentation, recording 8K video at 25 degrees Celsius, the fan ups recording duration from 160 minutes to 240. Well, that's a little more meaningful at 40 degrees, where the fan increases duration from 13 minutes to 60 minutes. Feel free to start a GoFundMe page to send me to a 40-degree location to test that. Now, I've skipped over the network setting menu with the hope that I'll be able to review the networking grip soon, which will cover all of those details. Now, how to differentiate this from the H2S? The 2S is about speed, the higher burst rate, video frame rate, and less rolling shutter. The H2 is about resolution, both for stills and video. So I am still scratching my head over one thing. Gen 5 sensor, Gen 5 processor, huge resolution boost. Was there no one at the table to suggest that they call this the X-H2R? For those who have and love their X-H1s, you've waited for this. It's been worth the wait. This is the time to upgrade. And while my camera is on loan from Fujifilm Canada, they did not pay me or review anything before posting. This channel's sponsors are viewers who joined as members. Members enable me to refuse sponsors who'd like me to read ads to you and to disable YouTube's ad interruptions. If you'd like to join, there's a button below. But if that's not for you, but you're still interested in camera reviews and related photography content, please subscribe. And I'd love to hear from you. Please post your relevant questions and civil comments. I read and reply to all, even as YouTube makes that more and more difficult. Thanks for finding time to watch today. Stay safe.